Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good day today. Happy Tuesday. My name is Owen Carr. I'm the Chief Merchandising Officer at Spreetail, your top accelerator for all of the best marketplaces in the US, UK, and Canada. We're excited to have you with us today. Thanks for joining in. Have a lot of good content today and excited to dive into various items related to advertising and advertising incrementality. Before that, let's jump into some latest news and information. Let's check out. All right. One thing I wanted to highlight first is that for those of you watching with Amazon sales and Walmart sales and other channels in Q4, we just saw huge amounts of delivery speed improvement. And so Amazon actually delivered about 70% more items year over year in Q4 in same day. And so we saw 13 billion items delivered same day around the world. This also allowed for later cutoff times. For many of you in the space for a long time, or if you've been watching ecom, you know that back in the day, cutoff might be December 17th, 18th, 19th. That means if the item didn't ship or didn't order by that day, it wouldn't get to the customer by December 24th in time for Christmas on the 25th. This year, we saw items coming in on shipping on the 23rd, 24th. And so that really just expands that delivery period and that shopping period and gives a huge advantage to Amazon during that window because they're kind of the only ecom game in town that can deliver. So really interesting to see that their investment there, and we totally see it paying off at Spreetail. We see that for every day of improved shipping speed, a brand can see 8 to 12% increased sales velocity, and that's just direct additional customers versus the competition. And so that's really exciting. And a lot of people say, hey, but is that really right? Do I have to have this item, delivering next day? And I would say yes, because the algorithms on all of the marketplaces give priority to listings that deliver that fast versus listings that deliver slow. Another headline I want to call out is just overall advertising growth. And so you can see here, Amazon grew 18% in ads and Walmart in 27%. These are huge areas of additional dollars coming into the marketplaces. This is a huge area of brand investment. And so brands have to find these dollars somewhere to drive sponsored placements, to also get premium promotional placements behind ads. There's really less organic surface area on the sites now, and ads are really the game in town. And some call it pay to play, some call it table stakes. But the point is, if there's a brand you don't show up with an ad strategy and an ad investment bucket of dollars, you're not going to win on Amazon and Walmart today. And so we're going to really dive into that. And a leader at Spreetail that is the most knowledgeable in this area that I'm excited to have on today is Amit, who is our Chief Marketing Officer, and we'll welcome you, Amit, to the show.
Hey,
how are you?
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, good to be here. Isn't it crazy how much the Amazon and Walmart are growing in ad growth year over year?
Yeah, I mean, that's wild. And those numbers, right? Especially since how much people have been spending over the last 5-10 years
Right.
and seeing kind of
It's not like the bases are
on top of
small
that.
now. We're talking
Right.
many billions of dollars.
Right. So even on top of that base, seeing 18% growth, 27% growth continues to kind of showcase the value of advertising, but also why it's important for everyone to now focus on, incrementality and is it actually helping you grow your business?
Yeah, right. And also, I think on Amazon and Walmart especially, but all channels, you can't. This isn't ecom of 2000 or 2010. You can't just raise price and then invest, right? You have to find ways to get those dollars out of the delivery experience so that you can then invest in the ads. And I think that's what a lot of brands wrestle with, and we're excited. But before we get into all that, I think it might be helpful for folks just to unpack how to think about ads. And there's a key word that we use at Spreetail, many others use too, incrementality. But love it if you'd unpack that for us. What does it mean? Why is it critical? How should folks think about it?
Yeah. Kind of just thinking about it from the most simplest sense, right? Incrementality answers one question. It's, did the sale happen because of the ad or would it have happened anyway? And that's kind of our first principle, our foundation of how we want to measure and define incrementality. And then to your point, why is it important? Why is it kind of the big topic conversation? I think your graph says it all, right? I think we all know marketplaces today are pay to play. You have to be spending dollars. Gone are the days where you think about advertising as an afterthought. You have to kind of bake in advertising as you're building your brand, as you're building your product, as you're building your go-to-market strategy. So I'd say that's probably why it's a huge importance today is just, if you're not spending those dollars, your competitors are spending those dollars. They're doing, all the things they need to be successful. So you have to be able to kind of play that game. And I think early on, the question was always like, hey, are we spending dollars, right? And I think that's materially shifted today towards are our dollars actually effective in growing our business and growing our brand? So I think those are kind of the key points of why it's critical today. It's a pay-to-play game. Your competitors are spending those dollars, so you have to play that game if you want to be successful.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like, you and I were advising a brand or a manufacturer out there, and they were kind of wrestling with this incrementality. First thing we would say to them is, whoever is managing their ad spend, whether that's internal or a partner or external, that they're asking explicitly to see, like, how is incrementality being measured? How is it being thought about? What are the priorities? And then if the other party, whether that's internal or external, can't in detail answer that, it's probably pretty big red flags that should go up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, now if you're a brand kind of taking marketplaces seriously, Amazon, Walmart seriously, right? You have to have a point of view on incrementality. You can't just rely on kind of, traditional ad metrics like clicks and ROAS and those type of things. They're going to tell you activity, but they're not going to really help you understand the outcomes. So yeah, if you're kind of going level 3, level 4, and you're not getting the answers you're expecting, I think those are kind of red signals and red flags that you got to kind of dive into a little bit further.
Based on helpful information, based on kind of what you see, how much of ad spend, and do you think a lot of brands suffer with that's maybe not incremental, that's not adding value? Curious what you see when you're talking to brands.
Yeah, I think the honest answer is it's fairly significant. I don't think many brands would even want to answer that question. It's like
maybe even no to answer, right?
Right, exactly. Like, where do you start answering that question? I think even for us, right, when we started this journey, we kind of realized like maybe 50% of our ad spend was potentially being wasted. So I think, if that number really kind of, and we were paying attention, right? Or at least we're paying attention today. If you're a brand that's not kind of paying attention to incrementality, not kind of thinking about it, I would say that number is probably on the higher end for you. But even if you're a brand that just, mature, getting started, if you don't have the right kind of hygiene, if you don't have the right campaign structures, if you just don't have even the basic foundations in place, you're probably burning money and eating into your profit. So I would probably say, sadly, it's probably a big chunk of money that's probably being wasted if you're not thinking about incrementality as at least your top 2 to 3 things when you're really thinking about your ad strategy.
Yeah. If there was a exec out there that probably questions and like, hey, I think I'm probably in that camp where I don't think I'm probably driving incrementality. I know I'm spending X amount, every week, every month. Is your, and maybe they're not working with us retail, they can't pick up the phone and talk to their team. Is your view like, hey, don't make huge changes immediately, but immediately deep dive, put it as a top priority, go after it? Or would you say actually no, like run some tests, cut spend back a lot, kind of observe? Just curious how you're advising someone in that position, or maybe you would say, look, you got to find someone who can advise you really quickly on this topic because it's just too important. It's too important to be kind of wandering out there by yourself.
Yeah, I think I would kind of take it in a handful of phases, right? First is kind of just the basics and your foundation, right? Do you know what your foundation is, right? Are you kind of building campaigns for single products or multiple products and just jamming everything in there? Do you kind of know your targeting types? How much are you spending your dollars on branded keywords versus not branded keywords? How much of your revenue are you investing into advertising? Are you talking about 10% of your dollars being into advertising, or is it 2%? Once you kind of get some of those answers, you kind of know like, hey, directionally I'm okay, or where do I really need to deep dive into? And I think, this may be a little jarring, but the easiest way to kind of answer that question is, go dark. We've done this a handful of times at Spreetail. We continue to do it even with all the technology that we have. Let's just shut ads off. Let's see what happens. Are we willing to kind of stomach that?
Right.
If you're not willing to stomach that, right, then you kind of have an answer to yourself, like, hey, I think it's making a material impact,
Right.
and I don't want to risk my business. So I think it really depends on where you're on that spectrum. But there's some, foundational things you could dig into. There's some rip the band-aid off strategies where you just kind of go dark for a given month and see what happens. And then there's kind of some deeper things that, you would reach out to someone like Retail or someone like us, and we kind of walk you through exactly what we're seeing, how we're approaching
Right.
it, and kind of the data that we're seeing behind the background. So there's a handful of ways to kind of approach it
Yeah.
depending on, how much time you want to invest.
Makes sense. And why is it? I mean, why you would think that with all the money that's flowing through, especially Amazon, Walmart, why is it so hard to kind of measure the incrementality? Why is it not clearer? Do you think, or what's missing, and to kind of measure that?
Yeah, I would say kind of, most tools, right, that you're going to get from Amazon, Walmart, or any marketplace, even Meta, right? Social, I think this is more largely like an advertising challenge itself, right? Those platforms are going to kind of report on activity. How much are you spending? How many clicks are you generating? How many conversions are you seeing? What's your ROAS? They're never going to really answer the question of like, did this sale happen because of the ad, or would it naturally would have happened? And if you really kind of think about it, right, it's in their best interest not to share that
Yeah, to
information. They want,
obfuscate.
yeah, exactly, right. They want to make sure that their ad products are positioned in the best way possible. They obviously make a material impact, so it's kind of against their I would say benefit to really kind of open the hood. So you yourself have to really build a point of view. You have to kind of understand your campaign strategies. You have to understand your architecture. You have to kind of pull in all the different data signals, data points to help you
Right.
answer that question. So I think the reason why it's not easy is because it's not meant to be easy. And you really have to kind of take it seriously, put in a couple of months, maybe even a year to build the infrastructure to measure something like that. And I think a company like us can do that. I
Yeah.
don't think every company has the potential or the opportunity to do so.
Right. Well, and also every whatever, every brand is uniquely differentiated here, and then they go through different seasons, right? Like for instance,
Yeah.
incrementality may be a certain degree, but if a certain competitor arises or changes their bid habits or decreases them or exits a category, that can materially change. Like a campaign or a keyword focus that is incremental today may not be incremental in a month, and it may be back incremental, right? Just depending
Right.
on other dynamics that are outside of a brand's control. So there's all these like varying factors, which requires to do well. Ads cannot just be a set it and forget it thing, right? It's got to be the 24/7
Super dynamic. Yeah. Super dynamic,
human
24/7.
driven
Correct.
optimization. Yeah.
And then, I think the other big part of it is also people or companies, right, will, want to lean on one signal and one data source. And I
Right.
think that's probably one of the bigger learnings that we had is
Oversimplify it. Yeah.
exactly. Incrementality is more of like a triangulation game, right?
Right.
You have to be able to pull data from a bunch of different data sources. You have to kind of piecemeal the story together. You still have to have a waterfall of where do I have the highest confidence, where do I have the lowest confidence, and then once you kind of put that picture together, right, there may be one metric that helps you understand if a campaign or keyword is incremental, but the math underneath the hood and kind of the data underneath the hood is triangulating across a bunch of different data sources. So I think that's the other
Yeah.
reason why it's pretty challenging is you can't just lean on one data source or one time or a static view.
Yeah,
It's
I
very dynamic.
totally. I think that's a really powerful point that you make, and I see that with brand owners, executives, is they'll try and boil their ads down to one thing, like ROAS or spend or traffic or sales velocity, and that's a very. I mean, we wouldn't do that in the rest of our lives. Like you wouldn't go to a parent teacher conference and boil the whole child's like report card down to one thing, right? You would take in
Exactly.
all the variety of inputs and what the teacher says and the metrics, and I think it's similar here. And but it's a lot of data to try and keep organized, so it's tough. It's always
Yeah.
tempting to try and just say, oh, I want to just focus on one thing because at least I know that thing, and it seems simpler, right? But it can be dangerous.
Yeah, and this is why kind of right we're trying to lean towards right as much of automation and technology as possible. It's impossible for one
Yeah.
person to kind of put all this stuff together, make a decision, do
Mhm.
that time and time again for every single product, every single campaign, every single brand that they're working on. So the more you kind of just head towards a world that's data driven, a system that helps you kind of make some of these decisions, and you have the opportunity to audit it and understand how it's built, the more successful you're likely going to be.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that I really look at also is, right, before you even step into kind of measuring a bunch of things, I kind of look at it as, your golf swing, or your ability to kind of exercise. You have to have the right form before you could
Mhm.
actually do that rep, before you actually swing that club. So that's where I kind of really lean on, is what's the foundational work that you need to do. And that goes back to, right, what's your campaign strategies, what are
Mhm.
you targeting, what's your kind of split between brand and organic, how much of your dollars are you investing in advertising. Once that foundation is really built, now you actually give yourself the opportunity to measure the things you want to measure. And
Right.
then you can layer on kind of all the different data sources and the triangulation that we're talking about. The combination of those two things are really going to kind of set you up to
Yeah.
be successful and get some clarity.
Yeah. So I hear a few things. One, if you're not talking about incrementality, with your own ads team, with others, make sure that that's a top item. You want to kind of open up the hood. You want to make sure you have a whole series of metrics and data points that you're looking at, and not just kind of oversimplifying into one. You want to make sure you have good baseline techniques and tactics in place, so some kind of maturity in the process. That all makes a lot of sense. Well, tell me, let's pivot and talk about Spreetail's answer to the madness here.
Yeah.
With True Ads, which we've developed and built out with our data scientists and engineers. Maybe just help us understand what it is, what its approach is, and why we think it's a tool that can really help a lot of brands to grow ahead of the curve, right? Grow faster than their category or market's growing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, based off everything I just spoke about and learned, right, we put all that into our True Ads product. So, it kind of starts with the foundation, right? Making sure your campaign structures are right, making sure your keyword strategies right, making sure you're not spending too much in certain kind of targeting types versus others. That's kind of ticket to the ball game stuff, right? And now we've been able to pull data from a bunch of different sources, right? Organic data, paid data, unstructured data that doesn't exist, that we've kind of built internally, and then triangulate it into everything down to the keyword level. So, we know exactly what's happening on the ASIN level, down to the campaign level, down to the keyword level. So we could be a lot smarter around, hey, if we've got $10,000, where are we going to spend that next dollar to get the
Mm.
most incremental growth? And I think what we really try to do is shy away. We're going to use ROAS or ACOS or whatever metric you want to look at, but we're going to kind of really dig in underneath the hood and really understand, all right, is GMV actually growing at the brand level or at the ASIN level, right? What's kind of the mix of products that you're spending on? There's also kind of deeper data that you can kind of look at the ASIN level to understand, are you actually driving traffic and sales to the product that you're advertising, or is it going to another random product? So I think that's what's really set us apart. We've done the work to set the right foundation in place. We've done the work to kind of capture a bunch of different data sources. We've triangulated all that together. And now we can kind of pinpoint things down to the keyword and campaign level, which allows all of us to move faster, right? We want to be able to kind of take our brand's dollars, we want to take retail dollars. We want to really tie to market share growth, not just ROAS and kind of ad
Right.
revenue are going to make us feel good. And I think that's probably the thing that sets True Ads apart, is our kind of goal over time is to decrease your dependency on advertising to help you grow your brand, versus continue to just pump ads all
Right.
day, every day, to help you hopefully thinking you're growing your brand, but but those dollars could be easily burnt. So that's kind of been the first principle for us, is help brands grow market share, and then have we work backwards from there. And I think we've done a fairly decent job. Again,
Yeah.
it's still early in our journey. We're still kicking things off, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah. No, I love look, there's a lot of platforms out there for ads, but some of the refinements that we have around same SKU attribution methodology, same
Right.
brand attribution, campaign type, whether you're trying to really grow revenue for a new SKU or a new launch cold start SKU, or you're harvesting a mature SKU, where that SKU sits on the variation and how that links in with all the other SKUs that are variated against it, as well as, your point about the retail's goal is not just to make sure the brand is always spending more and more ad dollars. It's to make sure we're winning market share and doing that in the most efficient and cost effective way as possible. And that means balancing ads with promotions and price and other levers, right? New SKU launches, et cetera. So that's super encouraging and exciting. And I know you've been testing with lots of brands. It sounds like, what we're seeing in the data. It seems like there's been some pretty good wins so far with some brands they're gaining a lot that have been in the early pilot test.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to name some brands, right? I think Sterilite has seen a lot of success with kind of the work that we're doing, which is a mature brand that we worked with for quite some time.
Yeah.
Even Volume Brands, which is a newer brand that we kind of just
Right.
brought on as well, right? We could directly point to, hey, this used to be your market share for X times keywords. This is what your market share looks like today. Here's our ad spend. Here's how we influence those things. So I think that's really the exciting part, is being able to kind of open up the hood, share our results with our brands, help them understand how we're kind of navigating this complicated world, getting away from the ROAS targets and kind of
Right.
single metrics, and kind of telling that entire story. There's a bunch of other kind of wins that we could kind of talk about underneath the belt as well. The Intex, Bestway, and some of those pieces. But yeah, those are kind of some of the things I'm super excited about. And again, right, from an ads perspective, it isn't really just talking about PPC ads, right? If you kind of own the market on the PPC ads, I think one thing that, we've gotten much better at retail is kind of being full stack marketers, right? If you've kind of captured all the demand from the bottom of the funnel, right, then think about DSP to kind of generate more demand with some of the strategies and tactics that are there. We want to lean on influencers. We want to lean on publishers. We want to kind of be full stack marketers. And again, if we kind of take a step back and say, do we want to just spend money to drive our sale, or are we trying to help a brand grow their market share, help a brand grow their kind of presence online? You kind of have to think about those things as a full stack marketer versus just kind of a single point solution. And I think that's kind of one of the beauties of Spreetail is, we're really looking at everything from the bottoms up and top down, depending on where your place is within the market itself.
For sure. And also, I mean, whether you're working with Spreetail on the full kind of accelerator services on Amazon, Walmart, all of many other great channels, or you're looking for, more traditional agency services with buy box experts, which is our Spreetail agency, we're here to help out and serve. And yeah, thanks for calling that out. Well, Amit, this has been a great convo. I think we've learned a ton, and I'm excited about what we're building here and what we will continue to build. I think in a lot of ways, we feel like it's just day one. We're just getting started, right? Exciting to see True Ads come into place, and it's already impacting, hundreds of millions of revenue. It's going to start impacting billions of revenue very soon. And so really excited to see a lot of brands thrive with that technology and tools. So thank you for coming on, sharing. Thank you for being at Spreetail, and look forward to talking further next time.
No, I appreciate you having me on it, Owen. It's been an awesome kind of hill to climb, and I think we've got a bunch more climbing to do. So excited to do it together.
Let's rock and roll.
Yeah.